Welcome back to the YouTube channel, where we explore some of the most intriguing, surprising, and downright unbelievable stories in the world of coins, currency, and collectibles. Today, we're diving into a tale that has captured the attention of collectors, historians, and curious minds alike. It's the story of the 1998 P5-cent coin, yes, a nickel, that's been associated with a jaw-dropping valuation of $183 million. Sounds wild, right? A small, everyday coin that many of us have probably used in vending machines or found under our couch cushions somehow being tied to such an astronomical figure. But like many stories in numismatic history, this one unfolds layer by layer, revealing a complex journey involving rarity, minting errors, collector demand, historical significance, and a few unexpected twists. The 1998 P nickel is part of the Jefferson Nickel series, which has been around since 1938. These nickels replaced the buffalo nickel design and featured Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his famous home, on the reverse. At first glance, the 1998 P nickel looks like just another regular coin in a long line of Jefferson nickels. Struck at the Philadelphia Mint, as indicated by the P Mint mark, it had a massive mintage. Nearly 800 million coins were produced that year. Nothing immediately jumps out at you when you hold it. It has the same weight, diameter, and metallic composition, 75% copper and 25% nickel, as most other nickels produced in that era. And yet, somehow, amid that flood of nearly a billion coins, something emerged that would later capture the imagination of collectors and push the boundaries of what we think is possible when it comes to coin valuation. The first element that makes the 1998 P nickel so fascinating is the concept of rarity, not in the conventional sense, like the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, of which only 5 are known, but in a more nuanced way. You see, although hundreds of millions of these coins were made, the vast majority were used, worn down, damaged, or simply tossed into circulation and forgotten. But somewhere in that sea of nickel and copper, a few coins emerged with exceptional characteristics. We're talking about near-perfect condition, unexpected minting errors, and variations that only the most observant numismatists would spot. Over time, these variations started to attract attention in the world of coin collecting. One of the things that can drive up a coin's value exponentially is the presence of a minting error. These are mistakes that occurred during the coin's production, things like double dies, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, or incorrect planchets. The 1998 P5-cent coin has reportedly surfaced in a few dramatic error types that sent collectors scrambling. One of the most talked about is a double die obverse error, where the details on Jefferson's face and inscriptions appear doubled. These kinds of errors are incredibly rare, and when they're found on coins from a high mintage year like 1998, it makes them even more intriguing. People don't expect to find rare errors in modern coins, especially not nickels that look so ordinary on the surface, but the 1998 P nickel saga doesn't stop there. Some examples have been discovered with a strikingly sharp strike, an unusual thing for this year. The mint had been experimenting with die pressures and striking techniques, and in some rare cases, coins came out with a much higher level of detail than standard strikes. These coins, when graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, received grades like MS68 or even MS69, placing them among the finest known examples. Now, when you take a coin like that, a high-grade, sharply struck nickel from a common year, and add an error or anomaly into the mix, it becomes a perfect storm for valuation insanity. Collectors will bid thousands, even tens of thousands, for the privilege of owning such a coin. And as word spreads, the story becomes legend. Then we get to the mythic aspect of the 1998 P5-cent coin being worth $183 million. At first glance, this number seems totally implausible. Even the rarest coins in U.S. history rarely fetch that much. The 1933 Double Eagle, for instance, sold for just over $18 million, and that was one of the most famous, most publicized coins in history. So where does this $183 million number come from? Well, it's a combination of collector speculation, sensationalized media stories, and perhaps even a bit of misinterpretation. Some of the hype came from reports that a unique specimen with multiple rare traits, flawless condition, striking error, and ultra-low population was once insured for a staggering amount due to its historical significance and speculative market value. Insurance values can sometimes reflect not just the retail price but the perceived importance of the item, especially if it's one of a kind or irreplaceable. Another theory that's floated around is that a private collector or consortium placed a not-for-sale valuation of $183 million on the coin as a symbolic gesture, possibly tying it to Jeffersonian history or another symbolic factor. It's not uncommon for certain items, especially those steeped in lore, to carry wildly inflated values as part of a story or promotional endeavor. In these cases, the coin becomes less of a currency item and more of a cultural artifact, a piece of Americana, a relic of a time when something ordinary became extraordinary. The legend grew further thanks to viral stories, online auctions, social media buzz, and YouTube videos speculating about hidden treasures in pocket change. And in the mix, the 1998 nickel found its way into the spotlight again and again. People began to check their change. Treasure hunters, inspired by stories of rare finds, started to comb through rolls of nickels from banks, coin jars, and old coffee tins, hoping to stumble upon one of these elusive gems. And the few high-grade examples that surfaced in auctions began to draw serious attention. Prices spiked, bids soared, and suddenly a coin that once seemed utterly unremarkable was commanding five-figure prices or more. But beyond the speculative market, there's a deeper historical context to why this coin has captivated so many people. The 1998 5-cent coin sits at the end of an era. Just a few years later, in 2004 and 2005, the U.S. Mint began redesigning the Jefferson Nickel as part of the Westward Journey series. This gave new historical significance to the earlier coins in the series, particularly those from the late 90s, which represented the final chapter of the original Jefferson Monticello design before the temporary shift. For collectors who focus on series completion or transitional periods, the 1998 becomes a kind of bookend, an important piece in the story of American coinage evolution. There's also the economic and cultural context of the late 1990s. America was booming in the late 90s. The internet was changing the world, the stock market was riding high, and optimism was in the air. Coins minted in this period carry a certain nostalgia, a reflection of the pre-9/11 era that feels almost like another world. The 1998 nickel, though small and easily overlooked, carries with it that moment in time. It's a symbol of what money was, what people valued, and how even the most mundane objects can take on extraordinary meaning in hindsight. One of the most fascinating aspects of this story is how much influence perception can have in numismatics. The value of a coin is not just about rarity, condition, or historical context. It's also about narrative. The story of a coin can elevate its worth far beyond the sum of its metallic components or face value. And the 1998 nickel, through a perfect storm of myth, mystery, and market momentum, has become a storytelling phenomenon. Then there are the individual stories, the collectors who stumbled upon a rare error coin in a coin roll from the bank, the retiree who found an MS-68 specimen in an old cigar box, the dealer who bid six figures at auction, and the numismatist who traced the origin of a rare die variety to a single batch from the Philadelphia Mint. These personal accounts add texture and emotion to the broader historical narrative. They're the human moments that remind us why people care so deeply about coins in the first place. Even with all the speculation, hype, and mystery, it's important to remember that most 1998 nickels in circulation are worth face value. You could spend one at the grocery store and no one would blink. But the idea that one might hold a piece worth millions, or even tens of thousands, taps into something universal, the dream of finding treasure in the everyday. That dream keeps the legend alive. It fuels the hunt, inspires collectors, and breathes life into coin shows, online forums, and auctions. That if you're wondering whether you might have one of these rare 1998 nickels, there are a few things to check. First, examine the condition. Coins that are uncirculated, with no visible wear and strong luster, are far more likely to be valuable. Next, look for errors, doubling on Jefferson's profile or inscriptions, off-center strikes, or planchet flaws. A magnifying glass or loupe can help here. Lastly, if you think you've got something truly rare, consider submitting it to a professional grading service. They can confirm the coin's authenticity, assign it a grade, and potentially reveal if you're sitting on a hidden gem. And even if your coin turns out to be a regular 1998 P nickel, don't be discouraged. The story alone is worth something. It connects you to a broader world of collectors, historians, and enthusiasts who share a passion for discovery and appreciation for the small wonders of everyday life. Today we dive deep into the hidden stories, the legends, and the surprises buried in the world of American coins and currency. Today, we're turning our spotlight onto a modern coin that, on the surface, seems completely ordinary. A coin you've probably used to pay for parking, dropped into a donation jar, or left sitting in a drawer without a second thought. I'm talking about the 2015 P5-cent coin, the Jefferson Nickel. Now, what if I told you that this small, silver-colored coin minted just a few years ago has been at the center of one of the most jaw-dropping valuation rumors in numismatic circles? That's right, this simple nickel has been associated with a staggering $183 million value, a number that sounds more like a Powerball jackpot than anything to do with pocket change. How could this possibly be real? Well, settle in, because the story of the 2015 P nickel is much deeper, more fascinating, and more tangled in history, speculation, and collector frenzy than you might ever expect. The Jefferson Nickel has been a mainstay in American pockets since 1938. It replaced the Buffalo nickel and brought a new level of historical reverence to the 5-cent piece. Thomas Jefferson's iconic profile on the obverse and his home, Monticello, on the reverse made the coin a tribute not only to a founding father but also to architectural beauty and intellectual legacy. Through the decades, this design went through minor refinements, but the core remained the same until major redesigns in the early 2000s. The 2015 version of the nickel, however, stands firmly within the modern iteration of the Jefferson series that was refined in 2006. On the 2015 P, Jefferson is depicted facing forward rather than in profile, a bold change that updated the coin's look for the 21st century. The mint mark P denotes that it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. In that year, over 750 million nickels were produced at Philadelphia alone. So how can something with such a high mintage possibly command a value associated with a mega mansion in Beverly Hills or a private island in the Caribbean? As is often the case in the world of rare coins, the story doesn't rest on quantity, it hinges on quality, condition, and mystery. The first thing to understand about why the 2015 P nickel made waves is that several coins from this year were discovered to have highly unusual minting anomalies. Among the most dramatic were die clash errors, where the dies that strike the coin come into contact without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly, overlapping impressions on the coins themselves. These errors can make Jefferson's face appear distorted, or even seem like it's melting or shadowed. For collectors, these kinds of visual anomalies are goldmines, especially when they're clear, dramatic, and limited in number, but the rabbit hole goes even deeper. In certain rare examples of the 2015 P nickel, collectors began to notice strange doubling effects specifically on Jefferson's eye and on the inscriptions such as "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." These types of double die errors are some of the most sought after in all of numismatics. They happen when the die used to strike the coin has a misalignment, creating a ghosted or repeated image. On a modern coin, these are especially prized because quality control in the mints has become tighter in recent decades. Finding such an error in a 2015 coin suggests either a brief lapse in mint processes or an extremely limited production of flawed coins that slipped through the cracks. Some of the 2015 P nickels that have made headlines were also found with off-metal errors, coins struck on the wrong planchet. In one particularly dramatic example that sparked online rumors, a 2015 P nickel was said to be struck on a copper penny planchet, creating a coin with incorrect weight and color but still bearing the 5-cent design. While many numismatists debated the authenticity of this specimen, the rumors were enough to skyrocket interest. Collectors began hunting for others, and a few surfaced at private auctions, fetching jaw-dropping prices. These coins were often sent for grading by major services like NGC and PCGS, and when they received ultra-high grades like MS68 or higher, their market value increased exponentially. Then came the whispers, talk of a coin insured for $183 million. According to collectors' forums and niche news outlets, an anonymous collector or institution had allegedly placed that valuation on a pristine, error-laden 2015 P nickel, one of the only known specimens of its kind. Whether or not the $183 million figure was meant as an insurance benchmark, a symbolic gesture, or a literal asking price remains unclear. But as often happens in the age of the internet, the rumor took off like wildfire. Within weeks, YouTube videos, blog posts, and social media reels began talking about the mythical $183 million nickel. Treasure hunters began combing their coin jars and bankrolls. Coin dealers saw a spike in demand. People were walking into pawn shops and coin shows asking about 2015 P nickels with a level of interest usually reserved for pre-1900 rarities. At the heart of this story lies a much broader truth about numismatics and human nature. Coins are not just metal discs. They are artifacts of history, markers of time, symbols of leadership, politics, economics, and even art. The 2015 P nickel represents more than just a denomination. It is a snapshot of America in a specific year. The U.S. Mint was operating in full force, striking coins to meet demand while also navigating modern technological transitions and trying to maintain public interest in physical currency during a time when digital payments were taking over. Each coin minted during this time was a tiny resistance to a cashless world, and that alone gives it a kind of poetic importance. Collectors know that rarity comes in many forms. There's absolute rarity, the kind you get with coins of low mintage numbers. Then there's conditional rarity, which is what we're talking about with the 2015 P. Out of hundreds of millions of nickels produced, how many survived in perfect, uncirculated condition? How many were struck with an error that makes them a true one of a kind? And then there's the third kind, narrative rarity. That's the kind of rarity that comes from myth, mystery, and momentum. The $183 million story transformed the 2015 P nickel from a mundane coin into a legend. And in numismatics, stories can become just as valuable as scarcity. You may be wondering, is it even remotely possible for a nickel to truly be worth that much money? The answer depends on what we mean by worth. If we're talking about an actual sales transaction of $183 million, that has not been publicly documented. But coins have sold for tens of millions before. A 1794 flowing hair silver dollar sold for over $10 million. A 1933 double eagle fetched over $18 million. If a truly unique specimen of the 2015 P nickel were to come with documented provenance, a certified minting error never before seen, and a media frenzy, the price could climb to previously unthinkable levels. Especially if the buyer is less interested in the metal and more interested in the symbolism, the branding, or the investment potential. Another angle is the growing phenomenon of modern coin collecting. Traditionally, collectors focused on coins from the 19th or early 20th century. But in recent years, there's been an explosion of interest in modern coins, coins from the 1990s, 2000s, and even the 2010s. Younger collectors, empowered by social media and online marketplaces, have started to redefine what it means for a coin to be important. Coins like the 2015 P nickel, with their bold design and their potential for unexpected rarity, have become focal points for this new wave of collectors. And let's not forget the speculative market. The same forces that drive cryptocurrency prices, NFT valuations, and art auction results have started to influence coins as well. If a collector or investor believes that a coin has the potential to be the next big thing, they might be willing to spend a fortune to get it first. They're not just buying a coin, they're buying the future. They're betting that interest will continue to climb, that new collectors will emerge, and that scarcity and story will combine to drive prices sky high. The story of the 2015 P nickel, then, is about more than just a coin. It's about how we value things, how stories become legends, and how something so small can carry such massive cultural and economic weight. It's a story that blends fact and fiction, hype and history, investment and imagination. And whether or not the $183 million valuation ever becomes reality, the coin itself has already become a kind of cultural artifact, a symbol of what happens when the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The value of any coin, especially one like the 2015 5-cent piece, isn't confined to its face value or even its metal composition. What gives a coin true value, sometimes astronomical value, is a combination of intrigue, anomaly, rarity, public perception, and often a good dose of mystery. The 2015 nickel has all of these. At first glance, it looks just like every other nickel you'd expect to find in a handful of change. But once collectors and experts began noticing the little things, those tiny imperfections, unexpected characteristics, or even strange production inconsistencies, the landscape shifted dramatically. Suddenly, that little coin started to stand out. And in a field like numismatics, standing out is everything. Let's talk about where this kind of interest comes from. There's something fundamentally exciting about the possibility that a coin in everyday circulation, something millions of people have touched, could be worth millions. It's that lottery ticket fantasy, but instead of numbers, it's dates, mint marks, and dies. Coins like the 2015 nickel awaken something primal in us, a treasure hunting instinct that stretches back to ancient civilizations. In this case, the treasure isn't buried gold or lost gems, but rather a coin hiding in plain sight, overlooked by nearly everyone. This sense of discovery fuels an entire ecosystem of hobbyists, investors, and professionals. Dealers begin scouring rolls of nickels, searching for variants. Auction houses start looking for ungraded examples that might fetch a premium if sent to PCGS or NGC. YouTubers and bloggers jump on the trend, magnifying the story. And every time someone finds a new error, a slightly off-center strike, a misplaced die mark, or a doubling effect, it adds fuel to the fire. There's also a historical context here worth unpacking. The United States Mint has a long and complex history with errors. Some are accidental, while others are the result of mechanical wear and tear, human oversight, or transitional periods between designs. Coins with transitional errors, for instance, are highly prized, like the famous 1943 copper penny or the 1955 double-die Lincoln cent. These coins have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when a new coin like the 2015 nickel appears to have similar error characteristics, it immediately draws comparisons and speculation. Could this be the modern-day version of those historic rarities? Now, let's go deeper into the types of errors found in the 2015 P. One particular variety that caught attention was a die chip on Jefferson's eye, giving it what collectors call the zombie eye look. This kind of error, while minor in technical terms, has visual punch. It catches the eye. It gives the coin character. Another coin was reported with a retained cut. A piece of the die broke off but stayed in place, causing a bulge or raised area on the coin's rim. These defects are rare, and when they occur cleanly and clearly, collectors clamor to get their hands on them. But perhaps the most sensational claim surrounding the 2015 5-cent coin was that one specimen, minted in perfect condition with a combination of multiple errors, was insured for $183 million. That figure turned heads not only in numismatic circles but also in the wider world. Financial blogs, general news sites, and even some investment communities started asking the same question: how can a nickel be worth that much? Some assumed it was a hoax. Others believed it was a strategic marketing move. A few hardcore collectors believed the coin existed, held in a vault somewhere, protected not just by insurance but by secrecy. To this day, no one has produced conclusive evidence of a nickel sold for that amount. But just the rumor alone was enough to elevate the coin's status permanently beyond the monetary value. The 2015 nickel also holds cultural significance. It represents a moment in time, a piece of a broader narrative about America in 2015. Politically, economically, socially, that year was filled with tension and transition. The coin, humble as it may seem, was a silent witness to that moment. Carried in pockets across the country, used in vending machines, given as change, and stored in jars, it became part of daily American life. And for those few examples that turned out to be extraordinary, they now carry not only their own unique story but the echoes of everyone who may have touched them unknowingly. Coin collectors often talk about the thrill of the hunt, and that's exactly what coins like the 2015p offer. There are still undiscovered examples out there, nickels sitting in bankrolls, jars, or coin counting machines, waiting to be found. The allure is real. Imagine being the person who uncovers the next major error variant, or the collector who finds the mint condition piece that completes a rare pattern no one's seen before. That's part of what keeps the story alive and growing. Meanwhile, as the legend of the $183 million nickel continues to spread, it inspires new collectors to enter the field. It's not just about profit, it's about passion. Coin collecting connects people with history. It sharpens the eye. It teaches patience, observation, and critical thinking. For young collectors just starting out, the 2015p story serves as a reminder that you don't have to be rich to get started. All it takes is curiosity and a willingness to look a little closer at what others overlook, and let's not forget the impact of technology in this space. High-resolution photography, USB microscopes, and digital marketplaces have empowered a whole new generation of collectors. You can now photograph a coin with your phone, zoom in, analyze it, and compare it to known error lists in seconds. You can post to forums, consult experts, and get appraisals without leaving your home. This kind of access has leveled the playing field and made stories like the 2015p nickel possible. A coin once considered common can suddenly become world famous because someone had the tools and knowledge to spot the difference. In many ways, the 2015p 5-cent coin represents the fusion of old and new worlds. It's a traditional piece of American currency, struck with the same basic processes that have been in place for over a century. But its fame and mystique were born in the digital age, amplified by hashtags, videos, and online communities. That's why it continues to capture attention long after its release. It's more than metal. It's a modern myth. As we draw this story out even further, it's important to remember that legends don't need to be proven to be powerful. The 2015p nickel might never sell for $183 million. It might not even exist in that exact form. But the very idea that it could has done something incredible. It's ignited imaginations, inspired research, and brought new energy into a centuries-old hobby. And that's worth something far beyond dollars. If you're holding onto any 2015p nickels, this might be a good time to look a little closer. Examine the details, compare with known examples, and who knows, you might just be the next person to uncover something extraordinary. Because in the world of coins, history isn't just something you read about. Sometimes, it's something you can hold in your hand.